Hello and welcome. I am so glad you have joined me today. Before we begin our long journey through the past, I want to invite you to subscribe or follow so you can explore more of these extended history narratives, filled with calm, immersive stories from the everyday lives of people who lived centuries and even millennia ago. We are about to travel back in time, not just to witness the great events and famous figures, but to step quietly into the rhythm of daily existence in ancient civilizations, to feel the pulse of lives lived in ways both foreign and surprisingly familiar. Imagine walking through narrow streets where merchants call out their wares, where the smell of fresh bread mingles with smoke from cooking fires, and children chase one another around simple homes, their laughter echoing across stone courtyards. Picture the warmth of the sun on fields where farmers bend over the soil, planting, harvesting, and tending to animals that are as vital to their existence as the very air they breathe. This is not a story of kings and battles alone, though their shadow sometimes falls across our narrative. It is the quiet story of humanity, of the small triumphs and daily struggles that together shape the world. Let us begin our journey in the fertile lands of Mesopotamia, where the first cities rose from the banks of the Tigris and Euphrates rivers. Life here moved with the rhythm of the seasons, dictated by the ebb and flow of the rivers, and the need to cultivate the land. Farmers woke early, as the sun cast a soft golden light across the mud-brick homes and narrow alleyways of towns that were beginning to take on the shape of cities. Their tools were simple but effective: wooden plows drawn by oxen, baskets for carrying grain, and clay jars for storing water and food. The markets were alive with color and sound, as potters, weavers, and metalworkers displayed their goods. Women played an essential role, not only managing households and preparing meals, but also tending small gardens, weaving textiles, and participating in the subtle economics of local trade. Children learned through observation and repetition, assisting in daily chores while also absorbing the stories of their ancestors, tales of gods and creation, of floods that reshaped the land and kings who rose and fell like the river tides themselves. In the evenings, families gathered around fires to share meals of bread, vegetables, and occasionally meat, stories flowing naturally from one generation to the next, blending lessons with entertainment in a way that made history itself alive and tangible. As we move from Mesopotamia toward the banks of the Nile, life in ancient Egypt reveals a society where the river dictated the pace of every day. Here, the flooding of the Nile brought both promise and uncertainty, enriching the soil while demanding careful planning and cooperation from the communities who relied upon it. Farmers worked in the fields, their bare feet sinking into the soft mud as they planted flax, barley, and wheat. Children accompanied their parents, learning the precise methods that had been perfected over generations, understanding intuitively the relationship between sun, water, and soil. Towns were built close enough to the river to allow easy access to water for cooking, washing, and irrigation, yet far enough to remain safe from the occasional floods that could sweep away the unprepared. Craftsmen and artisans were highly respected, as their skills in creating jewelry, pottery, and tools were essential to both daily life and religious practice. Women, too, held an esteemed place in society, managing homes, preparing food, and contributing to family businesses or trade where opportunity allowed. Every aspect of life was intertwined with faith, prayers and offerings to gods, the careful observance of rituals, and the attention to symbols that permeated even the simplest of homes. Beyond Egypt, in the vast plains and rolling hills of the Indus Valley, we find another civilization shaped by environment and ingenuity. Cities like Mohenjo-daro and Harappa were marvels of urban planning, with streets laid out in grids, sophisticated drainage systems, and houses built from fired bricks. Life here moved with a quiet orderliness. Residents rose with the sun, fetching water from wells, preparing simple meals, and tending to small gardens or livestock. Merchants carried goods from one city to another, and children learned skills early, whether in weaving, bead making, or assisting their parents in maintaining the home. Markets were central to community life, filled with spices, grains, cloth, and pottery. Festivals punctuated the calendar, moments where ordinary routines were suspended, and people celebrated with music, dance, and communal feasts, a reminder that even amidst work and labor, joy and creativity found their place. Communication, both practical and cultural, was woven through trade, written symbols, and shared knowledge, connecting distant communities in ways that reinforced the social fabric and shaped identity. If we turn toward the Aegean and the early civilizations of Greece and Crete, we encounter life defined by both the land and the sea. Villages perched on hillsides or along coastlines, olive groves stretching toward the horizon, and small harbors filled with fishing boats that brought sustenance and commerce. People worked in rhythm with the natural world, harvesting olives and grapes, tending goats and sheep, and maintaining homes built from stone and clay. Children played near the water's edge, learning to swim, fish, and assist in daily chores, while elders told stories that blended myth and history, giving shape to cultural identity and moral lessons. Artisans produced pottery, tools, and jewelry, their work revealing both practicality and aesthetic beauty. Temples and communal spaces stood as centers of social and spiritual life, places where rituals were performed, gatherings held, and stories passed from one generation to the next. The daily pace was slow and deliberate, marked by labor, leisure, and the continuous presence of nature, which dictated both opportunity and challenge. In the distant lands of China, along the fertile valleys of the Yellow and Yangtze rivers, life unfolded with careful attention to harmony and balance. Farmers tended rice paddies and wheat fields, understanding the rhythms of water, soil, and seasonal change. Homes were simple but functional, often constructed from wood and clay, with gardens and courtyards providing both sustenance and beauty. Family structures were central, with multiple generations living together, sharing labor, food, and knowledge. Children learned not only practical skills, but also the stories and philosophies that guided behavior and shaped character. Artisans worked with bronze, silk, and ceramics, producing items that were both utilitarian and highly valued in trade. Rituals and festivals marked the calendar. Moments to honor ancestors, celebrate harvests, or mark seasonal transitions, blending spiritual practice with communal gathering. Daily life was a careful balance of work, family, and respect for the natural and social order, an intricate dance that sustained communities over centuries. In the heart of Mesoamerica, civilizations such as the Olmec, Maya, and later, the Aztec developed vibrant cultures that intertwined agriculture, spirituality, and artistry. Life revolved around maize, beans, and squash, the staple crops that supported communities across fertile valleys and river plains. Farmers labored in fields, children helped with chores, and communities came together for shared tasks like building terraces, maintaining canals, or preparing for festivals. Temples and ceremonial centers were not distant abstractions but central to daily experience, where art, religion, and governance converged. Craftsmen produced intricate pottery, carved stone, and woven textiles, each item carrying both functional purpose and symbolic meaning. Storytelling, music, and dance were woven seamlessly into daily routines, ensuring that culture and history were preserved in ways that were both engaging and continuous. The daily rhythm balanced labor with leisure, survival with celebration, and the practical with the sacred, creating a vibrant, enduring sense of community. Across the Pacific, in the islands of Polynesia, daily life was shaped by the ocean and the land. Communities relied on fishing, agriculture, and navigation, passing down knowledge through stories, songs, and rituals. Canoes carried both people and resources across vast distances, while families cultivated taro, yams, and breadfruit, and tended to pigs and chickens that were central to diet and ritual. Social structures were deeply interconnected with family and clan ties, and the wisdom of elders guided the distribution of resources, conflict resolution, and spiritual practice. Festivals and ceremonies marked important events, blending labor, artistry, and belief in ways that reinforced identity and cohesion. Children learned practical skills alongside stories that connected them to ancestors, the natural world, and the moral codes that guided society. Life was intertwined with nature, each day a negotiation between opportunity and challenge, abundance and scarcity, labor and leisure. From Mesopotamia to the Nile, the Indus Valley to Mesoamerica, the Aegean to Polynesia, a common thread emerges. Despite the vast differences in geography, climate, and culture, human beings everywhere organized life around survival, family, labor, community, and meaning. Daily routines, preparing food, tending animals and crops, crafting tools and goods, caring for children, and participating in communal and spiritual life, formed the backbone of civilizations. These routines were infused with stories, songs, and rituals that preserved knowledge, reinforced social bonds, and provided a sense of continuity across generations. Even in the quietest moments, sitting by a fire, mending a basket, or watching the sun set over a river or valley, people were participating in the slow, deliberate work of civilization itself. They were building homes, raising families, sharing knowledge, and creating the conditions for their societies to endure, often without knowing that their seemingly ordinary actions would echo across centuries. Life in these ancient civilizations was not easy. Illness, natural disasters, and conflicts challenged communities daily. Yet the resilience, creativity, and adaptability of ordinary people sustained them. Markets thrived not only on goods but on relationships, negotiations, and trust. Work was never isolated from community. Whether planting rice, weaving cloth, or shaping clay, each person's effort contributed to the well-being of others. Education was lived rather than formal, knowledge passed from parent to child, master to apprentice, elder to youth. And through it all, the subtle beauty of daily life, the smell of fresh bread, the colors of textiles, the laughter of children, the rhythm of work and rest, remained, reminding us that history is not only the story of kings and wars, but of people living their lives with care, attention, and quiet dignity. The sun rose and set over the ancient world countless times, shaping days, seasons, and years. As civilizations grew, interacted, and sometimes vanished, the essence of daily life, the work, the family, the rituals, the small joys and struggles, remained a constant. From the earliest farmers to the artisans, merchants, and scholars of more complex societies, humans everywhere experienced similar rhythms. Labor and rest, joy and sorrow, learning and teaching, building and preserving. The details of what people ate, wore, and built varied, but the underlying patterns of daily existence reveal a profound continuity, a testament to human ingenuity and resilience. Even in ruins, in pottery shards, worn paths, and faded murals, we glimpse the textures of lives once lived, ordinary and extraordinary at the same time, woven into the larger tapestry of history. The quiet moments of life, the conversations at a market stall, the evening meal by candlelight, the child learning to craft or cook, the laughter shared among neighbors. These were the moments that sustained civilizations and gave meaning to their stories. They remind us that history is not only found in monumental events, great leaders, or epic battles, but in the texture of everyday life. And as we trace the footsteps of those who lived thousands of years ago, we begin to see the threads that connect us, the ways in which ordinary people shaped extraordinary worlds through routine, creativity, and the simple acts of living. Life in the ancient world moved like the river currents themselves, constant and deliberate, shaped by both the visible forces of nature and the subtle rhythms of human society. Consider the farmers of Mesopotamia once more, whose lives were dictated by the flow of the Tigris and Euphrates. They measured time not in calendars alone, but in the swelling of the rivers, the planting of barley and wheat, the preparation of canals, and the careful observation of weather. Each day began before dawn, when the sky was a gentle wash of violet and gold, the air still cool, carrying the faint scents of damp earth and freshly turned soil. Men guided oxen across the fields, plowing furrows with wooden blades, while women carried water from nearby wells to nourish the soil and animals. Children, barely old enough to walk, clutched small baskets or sticks, mimicking the labor of adults with a fascination and playfulness that made the work itself almost ceremonial. The work of farming was never solitary, for the very success of crops relied on the cooperation of neighbors, extended families, and village leaders. The planting of seeds was an act imbued with ritual as much as practicality. Prayers whispered to gods for fertile soil, for rain at the right time, for protection from locusts and flood alike. Beyond the fields, the village hummed with the subtle energy of daily life. Potters shaped clay with quiet concentration, their hands slick and deliberate, spinning wheels producing bowls, jars, and simple vessels that would hold water, grain, or oil for months to come. Weavers bent over looms, threading fine strands of wool or flax to create clothing that would endure both the heat of summer and the chill of winter. Traders arrived from nearby towns with baskets of dates, figs, and dried fish, their voices calling softly to announce arrival, negotiating exchange with both diplomacy and familiarity. The market was a tapestry of colors and textures, the smell of baked bread mingling with the sharp scent of herbs and smoke from cooking fires. Here one could witness the small theater of human interaction, the pride of the craftsman showing his wares, the negotiation of a farmer trading surplus grain for a new pot, the laughter of children running between stalls, and the gentle admonishments of elders keeping the crowd in order. Life was not simple, nor entirely predictable, but it possessed a rhythm that was understood by all who lived it, a balance of work, family, community, and devotion. Meanwhile, in the heart of ancient Egypt, the Nile was both a provider and a teacher. Its floods brought fertile silt to the fields, but they also demanded vigilance. Farmers studied the river with a keen eye, understanding its moods, timing their sowing and harvesting to align with its ebbs and flows. The village along the riverbank was a lively scene. Women prepared bread and beer, staples of both diet and offering, while children chased ducks through shallow channels, their laughter mingling with the cries of herding animals. Men worked fields or constructed simple irrigation ditches, ensuring that water reached every corner of cultivated land. At midday, families paused to eat, sharing simple meals while watching the rivers shimmer and listening to the sounds of distant boats. The rhythm of work and rest was punctuated by devotion. Small shrines and statues of gods dotted homes and gardens, where prayers were murmured to ensure protection, health, and abundance. The intimacy of daily life, the shared preparation of food, the teaching of children, the maintenance of tools and homes, was inseparable from the grand narratives of empire, tombs, and temples. Further east, in the Indus Valley, cities such as Mohenjo-Daro and Harappa showcased a different but equally fascinating daily life. Urban planning lent the streets a quiet orderliness, with homes organized around courtyards where family activities converged. Water systems allowed residents to maintain hygiene, bathe, and prepare food efficiently. Artisans worked in workshops adjacent to homes, their expertise passed from parent to child, ensuring continuity of knowledge. Clay seals were etched with symbols that communicated ownership, trade, and identity, blending practicality with the earliest forms of written record. Markets were central to life, places where spices, grains, beads, and textiles were exchanged. Yet it was not only commerce that shaped the rhythm of life. Festivals and religious observances punctuated the year, drawing families together to sing, dance, and participate in rituals that celebrated harvest, fertility, and cosmic cycles. Children learned through observation, play, and participation, understanding the intricate social fabric as they helped with chores, assisted craftsmen, or ran errands through the bustling streets. Even amid the organization and sophistication of urban life, the small, intimate moments, the sharing of a meal, the laughter of children, the quiet reflection in a courtyard, were the threads that wove civilization together. In the Mediterranean world, life in early Greece and Crete reflected the close relationship between people, land, and sea. Villages perched on hillsides overlooked olive groves and vineyards, while the coastlines were dotted with small harbors, The arrival of fishing boats a daily event that provided both sustenance and trade. Daily work was a delicate balance of labor and learning. Farmers tended goats and sheep, planted crops in terraced hillsides, and harvested olives and grapes, each task requiring both skill and patience. Artisans shaped clay into vessels that would carry oil, wine, and grain, while weavers worked looms producing textiles for clothing and trade. Children learned through imitation and storytelling, their lessons infused with the myths and morals that connected the living to the gods and heroes of the past. Markets were centers of community interaction, where the exchange of goods was inseparable from the exchange of ideas, stories, and social bonds. In homes, women managed food, childcare, and domestic economy, while elders guided the community, preserving tradition and mediating disputes. Life was not devoid of struggle. Droughts, storms, and occasional conflict required adaptability. Yet the enduring rhythm of work, play, and worship created a strong sense of cohesion and continuity, a gentle pulse connecting generations. Meanwhile, in the river valleys of China, daily existence was shaped by agriculture, family, and philosophy. Rice paddies required careful tending, and their success depended on precise timing and coordination within families and communities. Homes were constructed to accommodate multiple generations, fostering a deep sense of interdependence. Children learned practical skills alongside moral teachings, observing their elders and participating in the daily rituals of household, farm, and village life. Artisans produced ceramics, bronze tools, and silk, which were essential not only for local use but for trade and cultural continuity. Festivals marked the cycles of the moon and agricultural seasons, blending spiritual observance with communal participation, reinforcing social cohesion. The cadence of life, work in fields, preparation of meals, teaching and learning, ritual observance, was embedded with awareness of the natural world, a harmony that shaped both behavior and cultural identity. Across the Americas, in Mesoamerican civilizations, daily life was equally structured yet distinct. The cultivation of maize, beans, and squash dictated the rhythm of the seasons, requiring cooperation and shared knowledge. Farmers labored in fields, constructing irrigation canals and terraced landscapes, while artisans created pottery, carved stone, and wove textiles that carried both practical and symbolic meaning. Communities gathered for markets, festivals, and ceremonies, integrating labor with celebration and spiritual observance. Children learned through participation, absorbing skills and cultural knowledge in ways that connected them intimately to the land, the community, and the divine. The connection between human effort, sustenance, and spirituality was palpable, a constant reminder that life was a dialogue between people and their environment, mediated by culture and experience. Even in distant Polynesia, life intertwined closely with natural rhythms. Fishing and navigation were essential, with families passing down knowledge of stars, currents, and winds through stories and practice. Agriculture provided staple foods, while communal activities and ceremonies reinforced social bonds. The ocean and land dictated opportunity and survival, shaping not only labor but the flow of everyday experience. Children learned through observation, play, and participation in daily work, gradually acquiring the skills necessary for adulthood while internalizing social norms and spiritual understanding. Life here was an intricate negotiation between abundance and scarcity, labor and leisure, human endeavor and environmental conditions. Across all these civilizations, certain common threads emerge. Daily life was structured around survival, labor, family, community, and spiritual or cultural practice. Ordinary routines, preparing food, tending fields, crafting goods, teaching children, observing rituals, were foundational to the functioning of society. These routines were enriched by creativity, storytelling, play, and shared celebration, ensuring that even the most mundane tasks carried meaning and connection. Though the material conditions, geography, and social structures varied widely, Human beings everywhere experienced similar rhythms: work and rest, learning and teaching, celebration and mourning, creation and preservation. The quiet, often overlooked moments of life: children playing near wells, women preparing bread, men repairing tools, elders sharing stories by fires, were the backbone of civilizations. They sustained families, nurtured communities, and preserved culture across generations. Through these daily acts, societies endured, adapted, and flourished. Even amidst challenges, droughts, disease, conflict, and scarcity, the constancy of human effort, ingenuity, and care ensured continuity. It is within these patterns, these lived experiences, that the true history of ancient civilizations emerges. It is not only the rise of empires, the construction of monumental architecture, or the decrees of rulers that define the past, but the texture of ordinary life, the rhythm of daily existence that shaped the world in ways both subtle and profound. The ancient world was, in many ways, a tapestry woven from countless individual threads, each representing the labor, creativity, and devotion of ordinary people. Farmers, artisans, merchants, women, children, and elders all contributed to the structure and endurance of their communities. Daily routines formed the scaffold upon which culture, religion, and governance rested, and through these routines, knowledge and tradition were passed across generations. Life was both demanding and rich, structured and flexible, mundane and profound. It was within kitchens, workshops, fields, and courtyards that history was lived in its most tangible form. Even in moments of leisure, the human spirit found expression. Music, storytelling, games, and festivals provided relief from labor while reinforcing social bonds and cultural identity. Children learned moral lessons, practical skills, and historical narratives through play and observation. Adults found both sustenance and creativity in their work, and elders ensured continuity by guiding younger generations. These practices created a continuity of knowledge, a cultural memory that linked the living to their ancestors, to the land, and to the rhythms of the universe itself. The ordinary life of ancient civilizations, observed in its detail and rhythm, reveals a profound humanity. From the floodplains of Mesopotamia to the river valleys of China, from the Mediterranean hillsides to the islands of Polynesia, life moved with a gentle constancy, marked by labor, learning, devotion, and play. It was within the daily acts of living, preparing meals, tending animals, crafting tools, teaching children, celebrating seasons, that civilization persisted and evolved. Each day was a negotiation between necessity and creativity, survival and expression, individual effort and communal harmony. These patterns of life, repeated across time and geography, remind us that history is not only the story of grand events, but the accumulation of countless ordinary actions. The daily efforts of farmers, weavers, potters, fishermen, merchants, and families sustained civilizations over centuries. They produced food, built homes, educated children, created art, and maintained the social and spiritual fabric of their communities. Even the smallest acts, tending a garden, mending a garment, sharing a story, had significance, contributing to continuity, culture, and identity. Humanity's capacity to organize, create, adapt, and find meaning in ordinary life is the true heartbeat of history. The civilizations of the ancient world, despite vast differences in geography, resources, and technology, shared a remarkable unity in their patterns of daily living. Life was demanding, requiring labor, cooperation, and skill, yet it was also rich in relationships, culture, and meaning. The ordinary activities of everyday existence, work, care, learning, celebration, shaped societies as profoundly as any conquest or decree. The pulse of life continued quietly, persistently, and creatively, ensuring that knowledge, culture, and civilization endured. As we continue to wander through the quiet moments of the ancient world, we find ourselves stepping into the homes of ordinary people, where life unfolded in intimate rhythms that often go unnoticed by the grand sweep of history. In a modest dwelling on the outskirts of a Mesopotamian city, a family begins its day before the sun rises fully over the horizon. The mother stirs the embers in the hearth to prepare a simple breakfast of barley porridge, sometimes sweetened with dates, sometimes accompanied by a small portion of cheese or fresh milk. The aroma drifts into the courtyard, where children are already awake, chasing one another or helping to feed chickens and goats. The father heads toward the fields, guiding oxen as they pull the plow through furrows heavy with fertile soil. Neighbors greet each other with nods and brief words, the human connections that weave the fabric of community as essential as the soil itself. Even in the early hours, life is alive with movement, sound, and purpose, a microcosm of the civilization at large. The day moves forward in quiet increments. In Egypt, along the banks of the Nile, farmers in a small village rhythmically tend their crops as water flows gently through irrigation channels. The planting of flax or barley requires attention and patience, each seed carefully placed in the soft, fertile earth. Women and girls carry water from the river, balancing clay jars on their heads as they chat softly with neighbors, sharing advice about child-rearing, cooking, and the care of animals. Meanwhile, boys assist their fathers, learning to construct simple tools or maintain the embankments that keep fields nourished by the river. Every action, however ordinary, is linked to a larger system, the sustenance of the family, the continuity of the community, and the maintenance of harmony with nature itself. Here, life unfolds with a deliberate, unhurried pace, marked by work that is both necessary and meaningful, guided by observation, experience, and communal knowledge passed from one generation to the next. In the Indus Valley, urban life presents a different rhythm, but one equally structured and purposeful. Families reside in homes built around small courtyards, where daily life revolves around both domestic chores and craftwork. Women carry out tasks that are simultaneously practical and skilled, grinding grain, preparing meals, weaving textiles, and caring for children. Men often work in specialized crafts, pottery, bead-making, metalwork, creating items both for local use and trade. Markets and streets hum with the quiet energy of exchange. Merchants display goods, neighbors barter, and children weave in and out of the activity, learning both practical skills and social behaviors. Water management systems, including wells and drainage channels, not only sustain life but structure it, requiring vigilance and care. Every action, from drawing water to shaping clay, is a part of a larger network of interdependent labor and community. Life in these cities is both orderly and dynamic, a testament to human ingenuity and the subtle coordination required for societies to flourish over centuries. Traveling across the Aegean to the islands of Crete and the early Greek mainland, we observe a society closely linked to both land and sea. Villagers rise with the dawn, the golden light illuminating olive groves, vineyards, and terraced fields. Men tend goats, sheep, and crops, carefully navigating hilly terrain, while women manage households, prepare meals, and oversee the weaving of cloth that sustains families and contributes to local trade. Children accompany adults, learning the skills necessary to survive and thrive, whether herding animals, assisting in the kitchen, or helping with basic construction. The markets serve as a social hub, where trade, conversation, and cultural exchange converge. Craftsmen shape clay into pots, tools, and figurines, each item blending utility with artistic expression. Temples and communal spaces punctuate the landscape, reminding the community of their spiritual connections and the shared myths that unify society. Life here is a delicate balance of labor, social interaction, religious observance, and play, with each day a measured dance between the practical and the symbolic. Further east in the valleys of China, agricultural life is both highly structured and deeply connected to natural rhythms. Rice paddies require careful attention to water and soil, and families coordinate labor to ensure optimal growth. Homes accommodate multiple generations, fostering interdependence and the transmission of knowledge. Daily tasks are embedded with purpose, grinding grain, tending livestock, preparing meals, and maintaining tools in homes. Artisans contribute to society through the production of ceramics, silk, and bronze objects, integrating craft, trade, and cultural continuity. Children observe, imitate, and gradually learn essential skills, absorbing not only practical knowledge, but also ethical and philosophical teachings imparted by elders. Festivals and rituals mark the passage of seasons and agricultural cycles, blending work, leisure, and spirituality in ways that sustain both the individual and the community. Life is measured, deliberate, and interconnected, with each person contributing to the continuity and stability of the civilization. In Mesoamerica, daily life exhibits an intricate connection between agriculture, craftsmanship, and social structure. Farmers labor in fields cultivating maize, beans, and squash, often employing terrace systems or irrigation to maximize yields. The success of crops is vital, shaping both survival and communal well-being. Artisans produce pottery, carved stone, textiles, and tools, items that serve both functional and ceremonial purposes. Markets provide a space for exchange, not only of goods but also of knowledge, culture, and social bonds. Children grow up immersed in this rhythm, learning skills through observation, imitation, and direct participation. Festivals, ceremonies, and religious observances punctuate life, creating a framework in which work and ritual coexist seamlessly. From the morning's first light to the evening's quiet reflection, daily existence is structured yet dynamic, practical yet enriched with culture and meaning. Polynesian islands offer a compelling perspective on daily life shaped by geography and environment. Here, families rely on fishing, farming, and navigation for survival. Canoes serve as vehicles of both labor and exploration, carrying people and resources across vast distances. Agriculture produces taro, yams, and breadfruit, while domesticated animals such as pigs and chickens contribute to diet and ceremonial life. Social cohesion is maintained through family and clan networks, with elders guiding the distribution of resources, conflict resolution, and spiritual observance. Children learn essential skills through direct experience, observation, and storytelling, integrating practical knowledge with cultural norms. Daily life is deeply intertwined with natural rhythms, requiring adaptation, collaboration, and a profound awareness of both opportunity and risk. Despite differences in environment, climate, and culture, the universality of human experience is striking. Daily routines, food preparation, childcare, craftwork, trade, religious observance, and communal gathering form the backbone of all ancient civilizations. These routines sustain communities, transmit knowledge, and preserve cultural identity. Ordinary activities carry meaning beyond their immediate purpose, linking individuals to family, community, and broader society. Even amidst hardships such as drought, disease, or conflict, humans find ways to adapt, to create, and to sustain. In this way, the seemingly mundane tasks of daily life become the threads that weave together the fabric of civilization itself. Consider, for instance, the preparation of food across these civilizations. In Mesopotamia, grains were ground into flour to make bread, a staple of the diet. Cooking required careful attention to fire, water, and timing. In Egypt, bread and beer were central, both for nourishment and ritual offering. In the Indus Valley, grains were processed, fruits dried, and meals shared within family units. In China, rice was a daily staple, often accompanied by vegetables, legumes, and small portions of meat or fish. Across Mesoamerica, maize was transformed into tortillas or tamales, a dietary and cultural cornerstone. Even on Polynesian islands, taro and breadfruit were prepared in communal ovens or pits, their preparation a social as well as practical activity. Cooking was thus an intimate, daily ritual that connected individuals to sustenance, family, and culture, demonstrating that even the simplest tasks carry layered meaning in human life. Craftsmanship, too, reflects the integration of labor, culture, and identity. Potters shaped clay into vessels that preserved food and water, while also serving as canvases for artistic expression. Weavers produced textiles that clothed families and indicated social status or regional identity. Metalworkers and toolmakers fashioned implements essential to survival, from plows to knives, while also contributing to trade networks and ceremonial practices. Children often learned these skills from an early age, apprenticing with parents or neighbors, blending work and education seamlessly. The continuity of craft knowledge ensured not only practical survival, but also the persistence of aesthetic and cultural traditions. In every civilization, ordinary people sustained the intricate systems that allowed their societies to endure and evolve, often without fanfare or recognition, yet their labor was foundational. Rituals and religious practices permeated daily life. Even simple acts, such as offering a portion of food to ancestors or reciting a prayer before planting, linked the individual to family, community, and cosmos. Festivals punctuated the calendar, moments of collective joy and reflection, integrating social cohesion, spiritual observance, and artistic expression. Music, dance, storytelling, and performance complemented labor, ensuring that culture was transmitted, celebrated, and enriched in every generation. In these ways, daily life was a delicate balance of practical necessity, social interaction, creative expression, and spiritual reflection. The ordinary was never devoid of meaning, for each act contributed to the enduring rhythm of civilization. As the sun set across the ancient world, the day's work gave way to evening routines. Families gathered to eat, discuss the day, and share stories. Children listened and absorbed, learning both practical and moral lessons. Adults reflected on their labor, their relationships, and their place within the larger community. Elders recounted history, myth, and genealogy, ensuring that the continuity of knowledge persisted. Fires burned softly in hearths, lanterns flickered in homes, and the distant sounds of animals or rivers provided a natural soundtrack to reflection and rest. Even as night descended, life remained connected, intertwined, and purposeful, a continuous thread of human experience linking the past to the present. Through this lens, we understand that history is composed not only of grand narratives and monumental events, but of the continuous, deliberate, and profoundly meaningful actions of ordinary people. The civilizations of the ancient world, Mesopotamia, Egypt, the Indus Valley, Greece and Crete, China, Mesoamerica, Polynesia, and countless others, flourished not only through political or military achievement, but through the persistence, skill, and creativity of everyday life. Families, artisans, farmers, traders, and children collectively created and maintained the structures, knowledge, and cultural fabric that defined their societies. In the repetition of routine, the sharing of stories, and the performance of labor, they built a legacy that resonates even today. As we linger in the quiet spaces of the ancient world, we begin to appreciate that the true measure of a civilization is not found solely in its temples, palaces, or monumental achievements, but in the rhythm of its daily existence, in the subtle patterns that sustained ordinary lives. In Mesopotamia, for instance, the early urban centers were alive with a gentle bustle that belied the monumental engineering projects for which the region is often remembered. Streets were narrow and winding, lined with mud brick houses whose walls bore the marks of both functional necessity and domestic care. Roofs often doubled as terraces, spaces where families dried grain, wove mats, or gathered for conversations under the open sky. The day began with preparation, fetching water from wells or canals, arranging meals, tending to animals, and readying tools for the fields or workshops. The early hours were filled with soft sounds, the clatter of ceramic jars, the hum of conversation, the bleating of goats, and the distant calls of merchants setting out for the market. Every household operated as a small ecosystem, each member fulfilling a role that was both practical and integral to the cohesion of the community. Children shadowed their parents, learning through observation, play, and imitation. Even the act of carrying a basket of grain or sweeping the courtyard was an education in both skill and social expectation. preparing the young for a lifetime of participation in the rhythms of society. In Egypt, along the fertile Nile, life similarly revolved around water, land, and ritual. The inundation of the river was anticipated with both anxiety and hope. Its flooding ensured fertile soil, but demanded careful preparation to protect homes and granaries. Families followed a rhythm dictated by the rise and fall of the water, adjusting planting and harvesting schedules accordingly. Fields of barley and flax stretched toward the horizon, their green stalks shimmering in the sunlight, tended by laborers whose knowledge was both inherited and observed. Women played a pivotal role, not only managing households and food preparation, but participating in the economy through small-scale craft production, weaving, and the creation of household goods. Children assisted in chores, learned to read pictographs, and listened attentively to the myths and stories that informed both morality and identity. In every home, offerings were made to gods or ancestors, linking daily labor to a spiritual framework that provided continuity, structure, and meaning. Even the simple act of baking bread or brewing beer carried significance, connecting individuals to divine favor, community sustenance, and familial duty. The Indus Valley civilization presents a fascinating contrast, highlighting how urban planning and social organization shaped daily experience. Cities like Mohenjo-Daro and Harappa were organized around precise grids, with homes featuring private courtyards, bathrooms, and water access points that reveal a sophisticated understanding of hygiene and urban design. In these homes, women prepared food, cared for children, and maintained domestic order, while men often engaged in specialized crafts or trade. The movement of goods and people through streets, markets, and workshops created a subtle hum of communal life. Clay seals, pottery, beads, and woven textiles circulated not only as practical commodities, but as carriers of identity, social status, and culture. Children were immersed in this world from the moment they could walk, participating in chores, observing artisans at work, and absorbing the social norms and spiritual beliefs of their communities. Even leisure activities were imbued with education. Games, simple music, and communal storytelling reinforced social cohesion and moral instruction. In this way, the day-to-day existence of ordinary people was inseparable from the broader systems that sustained urban civilization. Labor, trade, craft, ritual, and social hierarchy interwove seamlessly to create a stable and resilient society. Across the Aegean, in Crete and early Greece, daily life bore the imprint of both agriculture and maritime activity. Villages perched on hillsides, overlooking terraced olive groves, vineyards, and fields of barley, where labor was interdependent and closely linked to natural cycles. Men tended crops and animals, while women managed the domestic sphere, prepared meals, and maintained textile production. Children assisted in every aspect of work, learning to care for animals, gather produce, and help in the home, all while absorbing the myths, stories, and moral lessons that connected them to their ancestors and to the broader society. Markets, though smaller than those in Mesopotamia or the Indus Valley, were central to community life. Merchants and farmers exchanged goods, ideas, and news, while the social interaction reinforced community bonds and a sense of shared purpose. Artisans shaped clay, carved wood, and wove textiles, each creation balancing practicality with aesthetic expression, revealing the value placed on both utility and beauty. Temples, communal spaces, and ceremonial sites punctuated daily existence, reminding people that their labor, leisure, and spiritual practice were interdependent, forming a holistic understanding of the world. In the river valleys of China, daily life combined agriculture, family organization, and ritual observance in ways that sustained continuity and social harmony. Rice cultivation required precise coordination of labor, water management, and seasonal awareness. Families lived in homes designed to accommodate multiple generations, fostering interdependence, collective responsibility, and the transmission of knowledge. Women managed food preparation, household maintenance, and childcare, while men often labored in fields, engaged in craft production, or maintained infrastructure such as irrigation channels and roads. Children learned through observation, practice, and direct teaching, absorbing both practical skills and philosophical knowledge. Artisans produced ceramics, bronze implements, and textiles, all essential for both daily life and broader social cohesion. Festivals and rituals marked the passage of time, integrating work, spirituality, and communal activity in a rhythm that harmonized human activity with the cycles of nature. In Mesoamerica, the cultivation of maize, beans, and squash dictated the rhythm of life. Farmers labored in fields, constructing terraces or canals to optimize yields. The work was often communal, requiring cooperation, coordination, and skill. Artisans produced pottery, woven textiles, carved stone, and other goods, many of which carried both functional and ceremonial significance. Children participated in these tasks, learning skills and observing social norms and spiritual practices. Markets, festivals, and ceremonial events punctuated the year, blending work, celebration, and ritual. Life was structured by necessity, yet rich in cultural and spiritual meaning, as each action contributed to both survival and the continuity of the community. The rhythm of daily life, the repetition of labor, and the integration of ritual created a tapestry of experience that bound the present to the past and the individual to the society. Even on distant Polynesian islands, daily life revolved around environmental rhythms, family networks, and communal labor. Fishing, agriculture, and navigation were essential, and knowledge was passed down orally and through practice. Canoes carried families and goods across vast distances, while taro, breadfruit, and yams were cultivated in gardens, and pigs and chickens were raised for both diet and ritual purposes. Social cohesion was maintained through family and clan ties, guided by the wisdom of elders who oversaw resource distribution, resolved conflicts, and led spiritual ceremonies. Children learned through imitation, observation, and storytelling, gradually acquiring the skills necessary to participate fully in society. Daily life here required attentiveness, adaptability, and collaboration, reflecting the intimate connection between human labor, community, and environment. Across all these civilizations, a unifying theme emerges. Ordinary people, through the repetition of daily tasks, sustain the structure, culture, and identity of their societies. Their labor, preparing food, tending animals, crafting tools, trading goods, teaching children, and observing rituals, formed the invisible scaffolding that allowed civilization to endure. These actions, repeated daily and across generations, were far more than mere survival. They created social cohesion, transmitted knowledge, and embedded meaning in the fabric of everyday existence. Even the simplest tasks carried layered significance, linking the individual to family, community, and the cosmos. The quiet persistence of these routines ensured that culture, tradition, and practical knowledge persisted over centuries, shaping both the present and the future of these societies. Consider the preparation of meals, an act shared across civilizations and deeply embedded in daily life. In Mesopotamia, barley porridge, bread, and small amounts of meat were common, with preparation involving labor, attention, and ritual. In Egypt, bread and beer held both nutritional and symbolic significance. In the Indus Valley, grain, legumes, and dried fruits were combined in meals shared within family units. In China, rice, vegetables, and small portions of meat or fish formed the staple diet. Mesoamerican communities relied on maize-based foods, often supplemented by beans, squash, and other crops. Polynesian families prepared taro, yams, and breadfruit in communal ovens or pits. Cooking was not only practical but educational, social, and spiritual, a daily activity that connected humans to their environment, to each other, and to their cultural heritage. Craftsmanship similarly reveals the integration of labor, culture, and continuity. Potters, weavers, metalworkers, and toolmakers produced objects essential to survival while preserving aesthetic and cultural values. Children learned these crafts early, apprenticing under parents or community artisans. Each creation, whether a clay jar, woven textile, or bronze implement, was a testament to skill, patience, and continuity. Craftwork reinforced social structure, economic exchange, and cultural identity, illustrating that ordinary labor was inseparable from the civilization's endurance. Rituals and festivals further enriched daily life, providing structure, meaning, and communal cohesion. Simple acts such as offering food to ancestors, reciting prayers before planting, or observing seasonal transitions linked individuals to family, community, and cosmology. Festivals punctuated the calendar, combining labor, celebration, and spiritual observance. Music, storytelling, and performance complemented work and daily routines, ensuring that cultural knowledge and moral instruction were transmitted through lived experience. In this way, the ordinary and the extraordinary coexisted seamlessly. Work, leisure, and spiritual practice formed a holistic and integrated human experience. Even as the sun set and darkness enveloped the world, life continued in intimate and reflective ways. Families gathered around fires or hearths, sharing meals, recounting the events of the day, and telling stories that blended memory, myth, and instruction. Children listened attentively, absorbing practical skills, moral lessons, and cultural narratives. Adults reflected on their labor, their social responsibilities, and their spiritual duties. Elders preserved continuity, passing wisdom and knowledge that linked the past to the future. The quiet, often overlooked moments of daily life, the flickering of a lamp, the laughter of children, the rhythmic clatter of tools, were the heartbeat of civilization, sustaining both community and culture. Through this perspective, we recognize that history is composed not only of monumental events, but of countless ordinary acts, repeated across time and space, that collectively shape societies. The civilizations of Mesopotamia, Egypt, the Indus Valley, Greece and Crete, China, Mesoamerica, and Polynesia were built and sustained by the labor, creativity, and care of ordinary people. Daily life, its routines, its rhythms, its joys, and its challenges, form the foundation of civilization. Families, artisans, farmers, merchants, and children collectively maintained social structure, transmitted knowledge, and created culture. In the repetition of routine, in the sharing of stories, and in the practice of labor, they forged enduring legacies, many of which continue to echo across millennia. Every act, from grinding grain to shaping clay jars, holds meaning beyond its immediate purpose. The work is both necessity and tradition, teaching the young the rhythms of survival and the wisdom of their ancestors. Mothers gather herbs and vegetables from small plots near the home, sorting and preparing them with careful hands. Fathers, having tended the fields, repair tools or assist neighbors with construction, their actions woven into the fabric of community life. The children watch closely, sometimes participating, sometimes playing, absorbing knowledge through observation, imitation, and gentle instruction. In the open courtyards, families eat together, the aroma of bread mingling with the earthy scent of the river. Conversations flow quietly, touching upon news, work, and stories handed down through generations. Evening settles softly, shadows stretching across mud brick walls, and the village slows, settling into reflection and rest. In Mesopotamia, near the banks of the Tigris and Euphrates, life carries a similar quiet rhythm. The streets of early cities hum with subtle energy. Merchants exchange grains, vegetables, and small crafts. Children run along alleys, their laughter punctuating the stillness. Artisans work in shaded workshops, shaping clay and weaving fibers with care. Families gather water, cook simple meals, and repair homes with mud and reed. Storytelling is central to daily existence. Elders recount myths and practical knowledge, blending lessons in morality, history, and survival into narratives that the young absorb naturally. Labor, learning, and social interaction intertwine seamlessly, each day creating continuity and connection within the community. The shared experience of work and life sustains the rhythm of society, allowing it to endure across seasons, floods, and occasional conflicts. In the Indus Valley, urban homes present a structured, deliberate way of living. Courtyards provide space for domestic activity, small gardens, and craftwork. Women manage the preparation of meals, the care of children, and the creation of textiles. Men engage in craft or trade, producing goods that circulate locally and across distant settlements. Children learn through participation, observing and mimicking, slowly acquiring the skills needed to sustain the household and contribute to the larger community. Streets and markets are alive with subtle interactions. The exchange of goods, conversation, the careful negotiation of trade. Wells, drainage channels, and carefully constructed homes reflect knowledge passed through generations, shaping daily routines that are practical, efficient, and harmonious. Even leisure moments, games, storytelling, music, support cultural continuity, embedding knowledge and social values in enjoyable forms. Along the coasts and hills of early Greece and Crete, villagers rise with the sun to tend olives, grapes, and crops on terrace slopes. Herds of goats and sheep are led to pasture, while water is carried from springs to nourish fields and domestic animals. Women maintain the household, prepare meals, and weave cloth for clothing and trade. Children accompany adults, helping with tasks, observing their parents, and learning both skills and the moral narratives of their culture. Markets serve as social hubs where produce, textiles, and pottery are exchanged, but also where conversation, advice, and community news circulate. Craftsmen shape clay, wood, and stone, combining utility with artistry. Temples and communal spaces anchor social and spiritual life, reminding people that work, leisure, and devotion are interconnected. Each day moves with balance. Labor, interaction, observation, and reflection, all forming a harmonious rhythm that supports both survival and culture. Along the fertile valleys of China, daily life combines family, agriculture, and ritual. Rice paddies demand meticulous attention, and irrigation is carefully managed. Families occupy multi-generational homes, with children learning through direct participation in domestic and agricultural tasks. Women handle food, domestic organization, and childcare, while men cultivate crops, maintain infrastructure, and produce tools and goods. Artisans shape ceramics, bronze implements, and textiles, their work circulating within communities and beyond. Festivals mark transitions in seasons and agricultural cycles, blending work, social cohesion, and spiritual observance. In this environment, labor is both practical and cultural, integrating survival with moral instruction, skill building, and the preservation of knowledge. In Mesoamerica, life revolves around the cultivation of maize, beans, and squash. Farmers cultivate fields with care, building terraces or canals to manage water and soil. Artisans create pottery, textiles, and carved objects, often for both functional and ceremonial purposes. Children participate early, learning by observing and imitating, gradually absorbing social norms and spiritual practices. Communities gather in markets, during festivals, and at ceremonial sites, blending work, leisure, and ritual in a continuous flow. Life is structured yet dynamic, shaped by both necessity and cultural meaning. Daily routines, planting, harvesting, preparing food, crafting goods, and participating in communal life, provide the scaffolding for society's continuity, ensuring knowledge, identity, and tradition endure. Polynesian islands reveal a world where human life is intertwined intimately with environment. Fishing, gardening, and navigation provide sustenance and mobility. Families cultivate taro, yams, and breadfruit, while pigs and chickens are raised for food and ritual observance. Canoes transport people, goods, and knowledge, linking settlements across vast distances. Children learn through observation, storytelling, and participation in practical tasks, gradually mastering skills of survival, cooperation, and navigation. Community cohesion relies on shared labor, ceremonies, and oral history. Knowledge of weather, tides, and seasonal changes informs daily decisions, blending survival with culture and tradition. Life is responsive to nature, requiring attention, collaboration, and adaptability. Across all these civilizations, it becomes clear that the texture of daily life is the true heartbeat of society. Labor, whether in fields, homes, workshops, or markets, is intertwined with education, ritual, and social cohesion. Children learn through participation, absorbing knowledge, culture, and morality naturally. Elders maintain continuity, passing wisdom, stories, and skills across generations. Even leisure, games, music, storytelling, and festivals, is embedded with cultural and practical significance. Ordinary acts such as grinding grain, tending animals, weaving textiles, and preparing food form invisible scaffolds that support civilization, creating stability, identity, and resilience over time. The preparation and consumption of food exemplify how ordinary life sustains both body and culture. Across Mesopotamia, Egypt, the Indus Valley, Greece, China, Mesoamerica, and Polynesia, meals are more than nourishment. They are education, ritual, and social cohesion. From grinding grain into flour to cooking maize or rice, each step carries knowledge, skill, and meaning. Families work together, sharing tasks and learning from one another. Meals are consumed communally, allowing conversation, story sharing, and the reinforcement of social bonds. Food, in this sense, is simultaneously practical, cultural, and spiritual, demonstrating the depth embedded in ordinary life. Craftsmanship similarly reveals layers of culture and continuity. Pottery, weaving, metalwork, and tools are created with care, skill, and attention to both utility and artistry. Children learn through hands-on experience, acquiring both practical skills and aesthetic sensibility. Each object, clay jar, woven textile, bronze implement, is a link between generations, a physical manifestation of knowledge and culture. Craft production supports survival, trade, social structure, and identity. It is through the repetition of these practices, day after day, that societies endure, preserving not only material goods but the intangible knowledge and cultural values they represent. Ritual and spiritual practice permeate daily routines. Simple acts such as offering food, performing prayers, or observing seasonal transitions connect individuals to ancestors, community, and cosmos. Festivals provide pauses in labor, moments of celebration and reflection, reinforcing social bonds and cultural knowledge. Music, storytelling, and performance enrich everyday existence, blending joy, education, and moral instruction. Labor, leisure, and ritual are not separate spheres, but interwoven dimensions of life that collectively sustain society. As the sun sets, communities across civilizations transition into evening routines. Families gather to share food, recount the events of the day, and exchange stories. Children listen, absorb, and participate, learning practical skills, social norms, and cultural narratives. Adults reflect on work, responsibilities, and spiritual obligations. Elders ensure continuity, transmitting wisdom and maintaining links to the past. Even in the quiet of night, life is present in small gestures, sounds, and reflections. The flicker of a lamp, the murmured story, the rhythmic movement of hands tending fires or weaving mats. These moments, humble yet profound, form the unbroken thread that connects generations, sustaining both culture and civilization. The study of everyday life reveals patterns that transcend geography and technology. In Mesopotamia, Egypt, the Indus Valley, Greece, China, Mesoamerica, and Polynesia, human existence is structured around labor, family, community, and meaning. Daily routines shape knowledge, reinforce morality, and preserve culture. They teach skills, sustain survival, and embed spirituality into ordinary acts. Across time and space, civilizations flourish not solely because of rulers or monumental achievements, but because of the persistent, careful, and creative work of ordinary people. As the story of daily life in ancient civilizations unfolds, it becomes increasingly clear that ordinary moments, repeated over years and generations, create the enduring foundation upon which societies grow. In Mesopotamia, a typical day might begin before dawn, with families rising to the soft light spilling over mud brick rooftops. Women begin the preparation of food, grinding barley into flour using stone mortars, a rhythmic motion repeated countless times across centuries. Fires are stoked with carefully collected reeds or wood, and water is drawn from nearby canals or wells, poured into clay jars for cooking and drinking. Men prepare for work in the fields or in workshops, tending to animals or guiding oxen as they pull simple wooden plows through fertile soil. Each step is deliberate, shaped by necessity and refined through generations of practice. Children assist where they can, fetching water, gathering firewood, or helping with small chores, while simultaneously learning by watching, imitating, and participating in the quiet lessons of everyday survival. The clatter of tools, the low murmur of conversation, and the distant calls of merchants and traders combine to form a subtle soundtrack, a constant hum that signals life in motion. By mid-morning, Mesopotamian streets are alive with a gentle, persistent energy. Artisans work in shaded workshops, shaping clay into jars, bowls, and figurines, their hands steady, movements honed by countless hours of repetition. Weavers sit near looms, threading fibers with careful precision to create cloth that will serve families, communities, and markets. The marketplace is filled with soft colors, baskets of dates, piles of grains, clay vessels, and woven textiles arranged carefully to attract buyers. There is a quiet choreography to these interactions. Merchants negotiating prices with measured words, neighbors greeting each other with nods and gestures, children darting between stalls, carrying small errands or playing, their laughter threading through the noise of commerce. Even in these ordinary interactions, the foundation of social cohesion is evident. Relationships are maintained, trust is cultivated, and communal bonds are strengthened, all through the regular, careful practice of daily life. In Egypt, the rhythm of daily life is closely aligned with the rise and fall of the Nile. Farmers move into the fields with the sun, guiding animals and tending crops with practiced skill. The fertile floodplains are rich, yet the river's flow demands vigilance. Too little water or too much can disrupt the balance of food production and survival. In villages along the river, homes cluster near small canals or wells. Women carry clay jars, balancing them with a practiced ease on their heads, bringing water to the household while simultaneously tending children, preparing meals, or weaving mats. The smells of baking bread and brewing beer mingle with the earthy scent of damp soil and the occasional smoke from cooking fires. Children play near courtyards and along pathways, sometimes assisting in chores, sometimes simply observing, learning the customs, work, and rituals that will shape their own lives. Meals are shared communally, often accompanied by conversation that passes down knowledge, history, and morality. Even in the simplicity of ordinary routines, there is a deliberate layering of education, social cohesion, and spiritual practice. Across the Indus Valley, life in cities such as Mohenjo-Daro and Harappa reflects a blend of urban sophistication and intimate domestic activity. Homes are constructed with precise layouts, featuring courtyards, private wells, and drainage systems that reflect both engineering skill and concern for hygiene. In these courtyards, women grind grain, cook meals, and weave textiles, while children play nearby, occasionally mimicking the labor of their elders. Men work in specialized trades, crafting pottery, tools, beads, or engaging in trade with neighboring settlements. Streets are orderly, reflecting the careful planning of urban life, yet they hum with small human interactions, the exchange of goods, shared advice, and simple greetings. Markets provide space not only for commerce, but also for socialization and knowledge exchange. Even simple acts, like drawing water or carrying food, are embedded with awareness of communal norms and responsibilities. Life here is a careful balance between the practical necessities of urban existence and the subtle cultivation of social and cultural cohesion. In the Mediterranean, early Greek and Cretan villages demonstrate another variation of everyday life, shaped by both land and sea. Olive groves and vineyards dominate terraced hillsides, producing oil, fruit, and wine that sustain communities and support trade. Men herd goats, tend crops, and maintain simple irrigation channels, while women oversee domestic production, food preparation, and textile weaving. Children learn through observation, participating gradually in labor while absorbing local stories, myths, and ethical teachings. Markets, though smaller than those of Mesopotamia or the Indus Valley, are vital centers of exchange and social interaction. Artisans produce pottery, carved objects, and woven goods, combining utility and aesthetic expression. Temples and communal spaces provide sites for ritual and social cohesion, linking labor, leisure, and spirituality. Life here is a measured rhythm, a subtle blend of survival, culture, and reflection, ensuring the continuity of knowledge, tradition, and community bonds. In the river valleys of ancient China, daily routines combine agricultural labor, family structure, and spiritual observance. Rice paddies require careful management of water and soil, coordinated labor across households, and attention to seasonal cycles. Families live together in multi-generational homes, fostering interdependence and continuity. Children participate in labor appropriate to age, gradually learning both practical skills and social and philosophical teachings. Women manage food, maintain domestic order, and guide children, while men focus on farming, production of tools, and other community tasks. Artisans contribute with ceramics, bronze implements, and textiles, blending utility and cultural expression. Festivals and rituals mark the passage of time, linking human activity to cosmic rhythms, reinforcing both social cohesion and spiritual continuity. Life is organized but fluid, a careful integration of labor, learning, celebration, and devotion. In Mesoamerica, the daily life of farming, crafting, and communal participation shapes culture and survival. Maize, beans, and squash form the dietary core, their cultivation requiring meticulous attention and often cooperative labor across communities. Artisans produce ceramics, textiles, and carved objects with both functional and ceremonial purposes. Children learn skills through observation and hands-on experience, gradually absorbing norms, practices, and cultural narratives. Markets provide opportunities for exchange, communication, and community building. Ceremonial events punctuate the calendar, blending labor, social cohesion, and spiritual observance. The cyclical rhythm of planting, harvesting, preparation, crafting, and communal gathering creates continuity, connecting past, present, and future generations. Life is practical yet imbued with meaning, integrating survival, learning, and cultural identity into a coherent daily flow. Polynesian islands exemplify daily life closely intertwined with environment, family, and mobility. Communities rely on fishing, gardening, and navigation, skills passed down through direct experience and storytelling. Families cultivate taro, yams, and breadfruit while raising pigs and chickens for sustenance and ceremonial occasions. Canoes transport people, goods, and knowledge, linking communities across wide expanses of ocean. Children gradually learn essential skills, participating in domestic, agricultural, and navigational tasks while internalizing social norms and spiritual teachings. Labor, play, and ritual coexist naturally, reflecting a balance between human necessity and environmental awareness. Daily life is a continuous negotiation between work, creativity, observation, and reflection, requiring attention, adaptability, and collaboration. Across all these civilizations, the importance of ordinary labor in shaping society becomes evident. Tasks such as food preparation, weaving, pottery, toolmaking, building, childcare, and market participation create invisible frameworks sustaining family, community, and culture. Children absorb skills, norms, and knowledge through observation, imitation, and gradual participation. Elders transmit wisdom and maintain continuity, linking past generations to the present. Even leisure, play, and ritual are integrated into daily life, reinforcing social cohesion, moral instruction, and cultural identity. Ordinary acts, humble, repetitive, and often unseen, form the bedrock of civilization, providing stability, resilience, and continuity over centuries. Food preparation exemplifies the intersection of labor, culture, and social cohesion. In Mesopotamia, bread is made from ground barley, often sweetened or enriched with dates and served communally. In Egypt, bread and beer are daily staples, often linked to ritual observance. In the Indus Valley, grains, legumes, and fruits are prepared and shared in family units. In China, rice, vegetables, and small amounts of meat or fish create both nutrition and a setting for education, socialization, and ritual observance. In Mesoamerica, maize is transformed into tortillas or tamales, central to both diet and cultural identity. In Polynesia, taro, breadfruit, and yams are prepared in communal ovens, a process reinforcing collaboration, knowledge transfer, and social cohesion. Each meal, though ordinary, connects individuals to community, culture, and continuity. Craftsmanship similarly illuminates daily life. Pottery, textiles, tools, and ceremonial objects require skill, patience, and attention. Artisans produce items vital for survival, trade, and ritual, embedding cultural knowledge in material form. Children learn craft by observation and practice, gradually mastering skills while internalizing social and aesthetic norms. These repeated, deliberate acts sustain economic, social, and cultural structures, ensuring that knowledge, artistry, and identity persist across generations. Even in civilizations with complex technologies or sophisticated urban organization, ordinary labor remains the foundation upon which culture, trade, and society endure. Ritual practice and spirituality are interwoven into daily routines. Offerings, prayers, seasonal observances, and festivals link individuals to ancestors, community, and cosmos. Simple acts, such as pouring water, preparing food, or arranging sacred objects, carry cultural and spiritual significance. Festivals and ceremonies integrate labor, education, and leisure, reinforcing collective identity and moral instruction. Music, storytelling, and performance punctuate labor, embedding knowledge and culture in memorable, engaging forms. Labor, leisure, and ritual exist in harmony, forming an integrated, enduring human experience. As evening descends across these civilizations, families gather for meals, conversation, and reflection. Fires or lamps illuminate small spaces as stories are shared, recounting both practical lessons and cultural narratives. Children listen attentively, gradually absorbing skills, values, and social expectations. Adults reflect on their labor and relationships, reinforcing connections and preparing for the next day. Elders maintain continuity, ensuring knowledge, tradition, and cultural memory persist. Even in the quiet of night, the rhythm of life continues. Movement, preparation, reflection, and teaching are ongoing, sustaining family, community, and culture. Across geography and technology, common patterns emerge. Labor, family, community, education, and ritual create continuity. Daily routines structure time, embed knowledge, transmit culture, and preserve social cohesion. Ordinary tasks, repeated daily, connect past and future generations, providing stability and resilience. In Mesopotamia, Egypt, the Indus Valley, Greece, China, Mesoamerica, and Polynesia, societies flourish not only through monumental events but through the persistence, care, and creativity of ordinary people. Life is a delicate interplay of survival, learning, culture, and meaning, and it is within these repeated, ordinary actions that the heartbeat of civilization is most evident. As we move further into the understanding of daily life in ancient civilizations, it becomes clear that time itself was experienced differently from the hurried pace of modern life. The passage of hours was measured less by clocks and more by the sun, the flow of water, and the cadence of work and ritual. In Mesopotamia, the day's rhythm was defined by the interplay of labor, observation, and community. Men worked in fields, guiding oxen through furrows while the soft breeze carried the scent of damp soil. Women managed domestic tasks, drawing water, preparing food, weaving, and teaching children the skills they would need to continue family and community life. Children moved fluidly between play and learning, imitating adults in small ways, slowly internalizing the lessons of survival, cooperation, and social responsibility. The day unfolded in a rhythm that was both practical and deeply meaningful, each action carrying weight far beyond its immediate purpose. By mid-morning, Mesopotamian streets were gently alive with the interplay of commerce, craft, and social exchange. Artisans bent over their workbenches, shaping clay vessels, weaving fibers, or carving small decorative items. Their movements were deliberate, almost meditative, refined through years of repetition. Markets, while modest in size compared to later civilizations, were full of soft colors, textures, and smells. Clay pots, bundles of grain, dried fruits, woven cloth. Merchants negotiated with measured voices, and neighbors exchanged greetings, advice, and small favors. Children darted between stalls, running errands or playing quietly, observing the flow of human activity and absorbing the subtle cues of social interaction. These seemingly mundane activities were, in fact, the threads of social cohesion, the invisible infrastructure that held communities together. In Egypt, the rhythm of life revolved around the Nile cycles. Early risers headed to the fields, attending to barley, wheat, and flax, while water channels were maintained to ensure the survival of crops. Women carried water, baked bread, brewed beer, and cared for animals, while keeping watch over children learning through participation. Every domestic activity was infused with cultural significance. The preparation of food was not only a necessity but a teaching moment, a place to instill values, share stories, and cultivate understanding of one's role within the household and the wider community. The interplay of work, observation, and teaching created a quiet continuity that ensured knowledge, skill, and culture were preserved across generations. Urban centers in the Indus Valley, such as Mohenjo-daro and Harappa, revealed a sophisticated approach to daily life. Homes were carefully constructed with courtyards, private wells, and drainage systems. Women worked in these courtyards, grinding grain, cooking meals, and weaving textiles, while men engaged in trade or specialized crafts such as pottery and tool-making. Children observed and gradually took on responsibilities appropriate to their age, learning the skills and social norms that would prepare them for adulthood. Streets and markets were alive with soft interactions. The exchange of goods, greetings among neighbors, and shared labor formed the basis of social cohesion. Even small acts, like repairing a roof or carrying water, were integral to the smooth functioning of community life. Leisure activities, from storytelling to music, were intertwined with education and moral instruction, blending the practical and cultural aspects of life seamlessly. Along the Mediterranean coast, villages in Greece and Crete were shaped by land and sea. Terraced fields of olives and grains required careful labor and attention to the seasonal cycles. Men tended livestock, maintained terraces, and harvested crops, while women oversaw domestic responsibilities, textile production, and food preparation. Children gradually learned to herd, plant, weave, and manage domestic tasks, absorbing social norms, cultural stories, and moral teachings. Markets, though intimate, were centers of exchange for food, crafts, and information. Artisans created pottery, carved objects, and textiles, blending practicality with aesthetic expression. Temples and communal spaces reinforced ritual and social cohesion, tying labor, leisure, and spiritual life into a unified rhythm. Days moved with a gentle predictability, balancing survival, education, culture, and reflection. In ancient China, the integration of labor, family, and philosophy shaped daily existence. Rice cultivation demanded meticulous attention to irrigation, planting, and soil management. Multi-generational households ensured interdependence and the transmission of skills and values. Children learned by doing and observing, gradually internalizing practical skills alongside moral and philosophical teachings. Women managed domestic tasks, food preparation, and childcare, while men focused on farming, tool-making, and the maintenance of communal infrastructure. Artisans produced ceramics, bronze implements, and textiles that served both functional and ceremonial purposes. Festivals and rituals marked transitions in the agricultural calendar, blending labor, leisure, and spiritual observance. Each act, from planting to cooking to teaching, carried meaning far beyond its immediate effect, connecting individuals to family, community, and cosmic cycles. In Mesoamerica, the cultivation of maize, beans, and squash shaped both diet and social organization. Agricultural labor was cooperative and organized around community needs, requiring communication, planning, and shared knowledge. Artisans created functional and ceremonial objects, pottery, textiles, and carved items, while children gradually learned practical and cultural skills. Markets, ceremonial gatherings, and festivals punctuated the daily rhythm, blending labor, play, and spiritual observance. Each day, repeated across generations, reinforced communal bonds, transmitted knowledge, and maintained cultural continuity. Life was structured yet adaptive, balancing survival, creativity, and social cohesion in ways that ensured resilience. Polynesian islands demonstrated a unique relationship between humans and environment. Fishing, cultivation, and navigation were central to survival, and knowledge was passed orally and through hands-on experience. Families cultivated taro, yams, and breadfruit, while raising pigs and chickens for food and ritual use. Canoes linked communities, transporting goods, people, and knowledge across vast distances. Children gradually acquired practical skills, social understanding, and cultural knowledge, learning through observation, participation, and storytelling. Labor, leisure, ritual, and education were interwoven seamlessly, creating a rhythm that was attuned to both human need and environmental awareness. The careful observation of tides, winds, and seasonal changes formed the foundation for both survival and cultural continuity, ensuring knowledge persisted across generations. Across all these civilizations, ordinary labor was the scaffolding upon which culture, society, and identity were built. Tasks such as food preparation, weaving, pottery, toolmaking, and market participation were repeated daily, embedding skill, knowledge, and cultural values into the fabric of life. Children learned through participation, observation, and imitation, while elders maintained continuity, transmitting wisdom and guiding the young. Even leisure, play, and ritual were integrated into everyday life, reinforcing identity, morality, and cultural cohesion. Civilization endured not only through monumental achievements or political structures, but through the consistent, careful labor of ordinary people whose lives were marked by continuity, observation, and care. Food preparation illustrates the depth of these intertwined practices. In Mesopotamia, bread made from ground barley and sometimes sweetened with dates was shared communally, linking sustenance to ritual and social cohesion. In Egypt, bread and beer were daily staples and often central to ceremonial offerings. In the Indus Valley, grains, legumes, and fruits were prepared in households and shared, sometimes forming the basis for trade. In China, rice, vegetables, and small amounts of protein nourished both body and mind, while meals provided opportunities for teaching, conversation, and ritual observance. In Mesoamerica, maize was transformed into tortillas, tamales, and porridge, sustaining not only the body but also cultural identity. In Polynesia, taro, breadfruit, and yams were cooked in communal ovens, reinforcing collaboration, social cohesion, and the transmission of practical and cultural knowledge. Meals, though ordinary, were central to both survival and the preservation of culture. Craftsmanship further illuminates the integration of labor and culture. Pottery, textiles, tools, and ceremonial objects required skill, patience, and repeated practice. Children learned by observing and participating, gradually mastering techniques and internalizing social, aesthetic, and moral norms. Each object, a clay jar, woven cloth, bronze implement, or carved ornament, embodied knowledge, skill, and cultural memory. Craftwork supported survival, trade, and ritual, ensuring continuity across generations. The repeated acts of creation reinforced identity, social cohesion, and practical expertise, revealing how ordinary labor sustained civilizations as surely as monumental achievements did. Rituals and spiritual practices were deeply embedded in everyday life. Simple acts, offering food, arranging sacred objects, reciting prayers, linked individuals to ancestors, community, and the cosmos. Festivals and ceremonies marked transitions in agricultural cycles, seasons, and social milestones. Music, storytelling, and performance enriched ordinary life, transmitting cultural knowledge and reinforcing social bonds. Labor, play, and ritual were not separate spheres but intertwined aspects of existence, each supporting the other. This integration ensured that skills, morals, and cultural values were transmitted naturally and continuously, forming the backbone of enduring civilizations. Evening routines were quiet yet purposeful. Families gathered around fires or lamps to share meals, recount the day's events, and pass down stories. Children absorbed lessons in skills, ethics, and social norms. Adults reflected on labor, responsibilities, and spiritual obligations. Elders maintained continuity, transmitting wisdom, practical knowledge, and cultural memory. Even the subtle activities of night, tending fires, preparing tools, weaving, or arranging household spaces, reinforced the stability of domestic and communal life. These moments, though understated, linked the past to the present and prepared the next generation to continue the cycle of daily labor, learning, and cultural preservation. Across civilizations and time periods, a shared pattern emerges. Despite geographic, environmental, and technological differences, daily life in Mesopotamia, Egypt, the Indus Valley, Greece, China, Mesoamerica, and Polynesia followed common themes. Labor, family, community, education, ritual, and play were integrated into a continuous rhythm. Ordinary routines, planting, harvesting, cooking, crafting, childcare, and participating in ceremonies, sustained survival, transmitted knowledge, reinforced social norms, and preserved cultural identity. Civilizations endured not only through the actions of rulers or monumental construction, but through the repeated, attentive, and skillful labor of ordinary people. The subtle, quiet, and consistent actions of daily life were the true heartbeat of society, ensuring that knowledge, culture, and identity persisted across generations, anchoring civilizations in both continuity and resilience. As we step into the quieter, subtler dimensions of ancient life, it becomes clear that survival and labor were only one thread in the fabric of civilization. Equally important was the way people expressed themselves, communicated, and connected with one another through language, art, music, and symbols. In every corner of the ancient world, humans sought to leave traces of thought, memory, and identity that would reach beyond the immediate moment. Even in the smallest village or the most remote settlement, people engaged in acts of expression that revealed who they were, what they valued, and how they understood the world around them. This aspect of daily life, though less tangible than plowing fields or preparing meals, carried profound significance for the transmission of culture, the construction of social identity, and the continuity of knowledge across generations. In Mesopotamia, for instance, the emergence of cuneiform writing transformed communication, education, and record-keeping. Early scribes learned their craft through years of painstaking apprenticeship, absorbing not only the shapes of symbols, but also their associated meanings, grammatical structures, and cultural conventions. Writing became a tool not only for commerce, recording quantities of grain, livestock, and goods, but also for storytelling, legal codes, and religious devotion. Families who could read and write valued this skill as a form of social capital, connecting individuals to civic and spiritual life. Children who observed scribes at work learned the significance of symbols, the rhythm of written language, and the weight of memory preserved on clay tablets. Even those who did not become scribes were touched indirectly by writing. The ability of their neighbors or officials to document transactions, agreements, and sacred narratives shaped the contours of daily life and created an invisible thread of order, justice, and communication that pervaded society. In Egypt, hieroglyphs served a similarly expansive function, linking the material world with spiritual and political life. Temples, tombs, and monuments were inscribed with intricate symbols, each carefully chosen to convey meaning, honor deities, or preserve memory. Hieroglyphic writing was often integrated with images, creating a rich tapestry of narrative that communicated both practical information and sacred truths. Scribes trained from childhood in specialized schools, practicing the meticulous stroke of each symbol while learning moral and cultural lessons embedded in the texts. The presence of written words transformed the experience of space. Walls, columns, and statues became vessels of knowledge, instruction, and inspiration. In everyday domestic settings, the written word appeared more modestly on labels, receipts, and administrative documents, quietly structuring the rhythms of life and ensuring continuity between households, neighborhoods, and the broader state. The Indus Valley civilization, though less understood in terms of deciphered writing, demonstrates that communication extended beyond the spoken word. Small seals and inscriptions, carefully carved into stone or clay, reveal a culture attuned to symbolic precision, trade, and social organization. Communities likely relied on both oral and visual forms of communication to transmit knowledge, regulate commerce, and reinforce identity. Children grew up immersed in environments rich with symbols, gestures, and shared understanding, learning to read social cues and participate in communal life. Whether through personal markings, trade inscriptions, or ceremonial artifacts, the act of leaving a trace, whether literal or symbolic, was central to continuity, identity, and cultural cohesion. Across the Mediterranean, early Greek and Cretan societies cultivated communication through oral storytelling as much as through visual or written expression. Myths, legends, and practical knowledge were passed from generation to generation, forming a shared repository of collective memory. Storytellers held a revered role in communities, often serving as educators, entertainers, and moral guides. Children learned to listen attentively, absorbing the cadence, narrative structure, and ethical lessons embedded in stories. Markets, temples, and public spaces provided arenas where information and culture circulated freely. Traders exchanged news and ideas, villagers recounted seasonal events, and religious ceremonies reinforced social values through performance, song, and ritual. In this environment, communication was dynamic, relational, and integrated into daily life. Learning was not abstract. It was performed, experienced, and lived. In China, oral and written communication evolved in parallel, creating layers of education, governance, and cultural continuity. The development of written characters allowed for the codification of laws, moral philosophy, historical record, and administrative instruction. Oral recitation and storytelling remained vital, particularly for transmitting wisdom, ethical principles, and practical knowledge in communities where literacy was less widespread. Children grew up immersed in both spoken and written language, learning to observe, recite, and internalize cultural patterns. Family units served as primary spaces for this transmission, with elders guiding younger generations in the subtleties of language, morality, and social etiquette. Communication was not merely about conveying information. It was an act of social bonding, cultural preservation, and moral formation. In Mesoamerica, communication took multiple forms: oral, visual, and material. Complex symbolic systems, including codices, pictographs, and carved imagery, preserve stories of creation, ritual practices, and social agreements. Markets, temples, and communal spaces served as arenas of verbal and gestural exchange. Storytelling, song, and dance allowed for the transmission of memory, identity, and ethical instruction. Children absorbed these practices organically, participating in ceremonies, observing rituals, and learning social hierarchies and norms. Communication was embedded in action, interaction, and observation, as much as in explicit verbal or written forms, ensuring the cohesion of knowledge and social structure across generations. On Polynesian islands, communication was intimately linked to environment, navigation, and social organization. Oral tradition was paramount, preserving genealogies, navigational knowledge, and cultural narratives across generations. Storytelling, chanting, and performance were central to both education and social cohesion. Children learned through participation in practical tasks, canoe building, fishing, gardening, and through listening to elders recount stories of ancestors, voyages, and moral lessons. Songs, chants, and mnemonic devices aided memory, ensuring that essential knowledge was transmitted accurately despite the absence of written records. Daily interaction, observation, and ceremonial performance created a constant rhythm of communication, reinforcing identity, cohesion, and continuity in environments that demanded both social and environmental acuity. Beyond language and writing, the arts played a central role in communication, expression, and identity in all these civilizations. Music, dance, and performance were woven into daily life, labor, and ritual. In Mesopotamia, simple instruments such as drums, lyres, and flutes accompanied communal work, celebrations, and religious ceremonies. Songs often encoded historical narratives, ethical instruction, or ritual knowledge, allowing both practical and cultural information to circulate through melody and rhythm. In Egypt, music and dance were integral to festivals, temple rituals, and domestic celebrations. Harps, percussion, and vocals supported ceremonial structure while also providing joy, cohesion, and moral instruction. Children learned both through participation and observation, internalizing cultural knowledge embedded in rhythm and movement. Art and visual expression served a complementary function. In Mesopotamia, carved reliefs, small figurines, and murals depicted myth, daily life, and religious devotion. These images were not merely decorative. They communicated values, roles, and cosmological understanding. In Egypt, hieroglyphs, statues, and wall paintings visually narrated religious stories, royal achievements, and domestic life. Artistic expression was deeply intertwined with identity, teaching, and memory, linking the individual to community, history, and spirituality. In the Indus Valley, small seals, jewelry, and sculptures encoded social, ritual, and economic information in symbolic forms. Visual culture in the Mediterranean, China, Mesoamerica, and Polynesia similarly blended utility, beauty, and communication, forming a universal thread in the transmission of culture and memory. Communication in ancient civilizations extended even into nonverbal forms. Gesture, spatial arrangement, and social behavior carried meaning and instruction. In markets, fields, homes, and temples, subtle cues shaped behavior, signaled authority, and conveyed social expectations. Children learned these cues through observation and participation, absorbing the unspoken rules that governed daily life. These silent forms of communication were as crucial as language or writing in sustaining social cohesion, regulating interaction, and preserving culture. The environment itself also shaped communication. In Egypt, the rhythm of the Nile dictated the timing of work, ritual, and celebration. In Mesopotamia, the canals and irrigation networks not only supported agriculture, but also facilitated communal coordination and information flow. In Mesoamerica, seasonal rainfall patterns and agricultural cycles were observed and communicated across generations through oral tradition, ritual, and shared practice. On Polynesian islands, wind patterns, tides, and ocean currents were memorized, narrated, and transmitted orally, ensuring that communities could navigate vast expanses of ocean safely. Knowledge of the environment was inseparable from human communication, interwoven into daily routines, ritual practice, and artistic expression. The intertwining of labor, art, ritual, and communication created a rich, integrated web of experience in which knowledge, culture, and identity were continuously reinforced. Children learn not only through direct instruction, but also through observation, participation, and imitation, gradually internalizing complex systems of thought, practice, and belief. Adults participated in maintaining these systems, blending work, artistry, ritual, and social interaction into cohesive patterns that reinforced cohesion, stability, and continuity. Even seemingly trivial moments, preparing a meal, tending a field, crafting a tool, performing a dance, or sharing a story, carried layers of meaning, teaching, and cultural reinforcement. In every civilization, the arts of expression and communication, whether verbal, writ, visual, musical, or gestural, were inseparable from the rhythms of daily life. They sustained social structure, transmitted knowledge, reinforced identity, and preserved continuity across generations. Language, symbols, stories, songs, and images allowed individuals to connect with ancestors, neighbors, and the cosmos itself. They made ordinary tasks significant, turning labor into pedagogy, play into moral formation, and ritual into social cohesion. As evening descended, the rhythm of communication took on a quieter, more reflective character. Families gathered around fires or lamps, sharing meals and stories, reinforcing bonds and transmitting culture. Songs were sung, tales recounted, and lessons passed down in the cadence of speech or melody. Children observed and participated, gradually internalizing the complex web of social norms, practical skills, and ethical instruction that defined their society. Even the silent gestures, glances, and spatial arrangements within homes or community spaces communicated meaning, teaching subtle lessons of etiquette, respect, and relational awareness. Across Mesopotamia, Egypt, the Indus Valley, Greece, China, Mesoamerica, and Polynesia, the integration of communication, labor, ritual, and art reveals the depth of human creativity and the resilience of civilization. Knowledge was not confined to temples, schools, or courts. It was embedded in everyday interaction, practice, and performance. Every meal prepared, every song sung, every tool shaped, and every story told was an act of transmission, preserving culture, identity, and memory across generations. Civilization endured not simply through political power or monumental architecture, but through these ordinary, repeated, and profoundly human acts of communication and expression. Throughout our journey into the everyday lives of ancient civilizations, we have traced the quiet, persistent rhythms that shaped human existence across continents and centuries. We have wandered through the streets and homes of Mesopotamia, watched farmers rise with the first light of day to guide oxen through fertile fields, and observed women grinding grain, drawing water, weaving textiles, and preparing meals that sustained both body and community. In Egypt, the flow of the Nile dictated the rhythm of labor and ritual, from tending crops to sharing bread and beer with family, while children absorbed lessons of survival, morality, and cultural memory through observation and participation. We have explored the meticulously planned cities of the Indus Valley, where courtyards and workshops were hubs of domestic labor, craftsmanship, and social cohesion. And we have walked along the terraces of Greece and Crete, feeling the balance of work, leisure, and ritual that connected people to land, sea, and one another. We have seen how the river valleys of China blended labor, philosophy, and education into a seamless daily rhythm, and how communities in Mesoamerica cultivated maize, beans, and squash, combining cooperative labor with artistry, ritual, and moral instruction. Across the vast expanse of the Polynesian islands, we have witnessed a world where navigation, environmental awareness, and oral tradition formed the foundation of knowledge guiding communities across the ocean and through generations. In all these places, ordinary acts, preparing food, crafting tools, tending animals, weaving cloth, trading in markets, or participating in festivals, were far more than simple survival. They were the threads that wove family, community, and culture together, connecting past, present, and future in a delicate and enduring tapestry. We have explored not only labor but also the ways humans communicated and expressed themselves. Writing, from cuneiform in Mesopotamia to hieroglyphs in Egypt, preserve transactions, laws, and stories, giving permanence to memory and knowledge. Oral storytelling, song, and performance conveyed history, ethics, and practical instruction in Greece, Polynesia, and Mesoamerica. Visual arts, music, dance, and ritual provided rich layers of meaning, linking individuals to ancestors, community, and the cosmos. Even subtle gestures, spatial arrangements, and shared domestic routines carried profound significance, teaching lessons in social behavior, cooperation, and cultural identity. In every civilization, these acts of expression, learning, and participation ensured that knowledge, morality, and culture were transmitted seamlessly across generations, giving ordinary life its extraordinary significance. Ultimately, what emerges from this journey is an appreciation for the quiet resilience of human civilization. Monumental architecture, royal decrees, and historic battles are often the things recorded in textbooks and memory. Yet it is the persistence of everyday life, the rhythm of labor, learning, ritual, and communication, that forms the heartbeat of human history. Every meal prepared, every song sung, every tool crafted, every story told, and every task repeated quietly over centuries created the invisible architecture that sustained communities, preserved culture, and connected generations. These ordinary acts, humble as they may seem, are the true legacy of humanity, echoing across time in ways both subtle and profound. Thank you for joining me on this journey through the everyday life of ancient civilizations. If you enjoyed this exploration, be sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel for more long-form history narratives, and share it with others who love to wander through the quiet, enduring moments of human life. Your support helps bring these stories to life and ensures that the rich tapestry of history continues to reach curious minds everywhere.